Australian Navy is about to lose one of its toughest battles. And though there aren't any casualties in the physical sense, there are a lot of wounded feelings. A lot of sailors very frustrated or very angry, but mostly just plain unhappy. The battle was to save the last remaining units in the Navy's fixed-wing air arm, A4 Skyhawk jets and propeller-driven trackers, shot out of the skies by an economy move of the Hawke government. We went to HMAS Albatross, near Narra in New South Wales, to see the fixed-wing boys doing their stuff in the little time that's left before they start winding down operations. Then it's over to helicopters, but it won't be easy to say goodbye to 35 years' worth of hard work and fine tradition.
Our husbands are going through a mourning. They are mourning the loss of something that they have devoted time, energy. They're mourning their family.
Round here, civilians march to the beat of the Navy. Narra, near Jervis Bay on the New South Wales south coast, is a Navy town.
8 o'clock, sir.
Guard! General salute! Present! Out!
But the daily routine is about to be broken. HMAS Albatross is about to have its wings clipped. And this special breed, who care for these seabirds, is devastated.
I can't explain to them why we have to disband the fixed wing so quickly. They're a terrific bunch of chaps, and their wives are being a great support to them. And we are a family, and some of them are being cast out of the family. Their whole life being taken away from them, and they can't see the reason for it.
The Australian Navy no longer has an aircraft carrier, but the fact is these planes don't need a carrier. New Zealand, most of our Asian neighbours and Israel, for example, operate them from land bases. These are the A4 Skyhawks. They've done us just fine for the past 15 years. In a few days' time, they'll be dumped. And these are the Grumman trackers. They're anti-submarine aircraft. They've been given a few months' reprieve. Also being ditched are 400 Navy blokes and their families. With them goes all that know-how and all that squadron spirit and pride that's been built up over the last 35 years.
I'm not sure why we're doing away with the fixed-wing element before the end of their useful life.
Commodore Thomas Dadswell commands the Albatross Naval Air Station. He's been True Blue Navy for almost 40 years. If a head has to roll by speaking out now, the Commodore says, it might as well be an old one.
I've been involved with flying, naval flying since I first served on the Sydney in 1950. That's a long time ago. And to be the presiding officer over disbanding it, which is the job I've got now, it really does hurt.
In your opinion, is it a stupid decision?
Well, I'll put it this way, I can't see the logic in it.
Blow the man down, bully, blow the man down.
Tender, loving care.
Hey, blow the man down.
This part of the Navy is being scrubbed.
Blow the man down. Give me some time to blow the man down.
The men now face the choice of transferring to the Air Force or the Army, or simply getting out.
Australians don't realise what they're about to lose. They don't realise that the Navy have aircraft, such good aircraft as this.
Lieutenant Commander Dick Scott is senior pilot of the Tracker Squadron.
I'm more frustrated than I've ever been in my life. Certainly more than I've ever been in my career.
Scott represents the best and the brightest. He's been aide-de-camp to 2 Governors-General, a fair sign that he's a man with a bright future.
I've given it my best shot. I've believed it all. I've come all this way, and then to be told that it's all wrong, it's you're not required anymore, to me just doesn't add up.
It's obviously out of character for a Navy officer to go public like you have.
Yes, it is. And it concerns me they've had to do it. But the fact is, I've been as loyal and as dedicated as the best of them for 16 years, and where's it got me, Ray, that we're losing a lot. We're being exterminated.
The total cost of naval aviation at the moment is about $20 million a year, and we don't have any surplus dollars.
Defence Minister Gordon Scholes is the man whose job it is to torpedo the Fleet Air Arm.
When there's a decision taken which doesn't satisfy some people, obviously they're going to scream at the umpire.
Now, you've been down to Albatross. Did you expect to find such a deep feeling?
Yes, because that's their careers, that's their life, and they are very, very loyal to their service. I would expect exactly the same results if we took a similar decision which affected another service. But you do have to take hard decisions. You can't avoid them all the time.
Dick Scott is not a whinger. He believes that these tracker aircraft can still do a worthwhile job as coastal watchdogs, not only in Bass Strait around the oil rigs, but remember that big empty bit up north that's such a worry.
Well, this aircraft here is the best coastal surveillance, coastal surveillance aircraft in Australia at this time.
The Sea King helicopter has taken over the tracker's anti-submarine role, and they're very good. The trouble is, we don't have any ships from which they can operate. It's this kind of defence thinking that worries the men who may have to do the fighting.
Australian servicemen have essentially always fought overseas, and I believe that's still probably the way we are going to fight overseas, and I believe that's why we need to carry aviation as well, to provide that ability to project our forces and support our forces overseas.
Lieutenant Commander Pete Clark, DFC, is a Vietnam War veteran. 17 years in the Navy, he's the CO of the Skyhawk jets.
And defence, I'm afraid, you just can't turn on and off at will. To dismantle us now and then to try and get us started up again will take years in lead time.
Well, I would think that we're hardly likely to be seeking to project our power 2,000, 3,000 miles away. We're more likely to be looking at a situation of operating in our own area.
These Skyhawk jets are worth $2 million each, and that's more than we paid for them. We already own about $10 million worth of spare parts for them, so they're not costing us anything. They're good until at least 1990. Now, the men who fly them and the blokes who look after them have all been guaranteed a job in the Army or the Air Force. There's no saving there. So the question is, why are we in such a hurry to dump them?
Frankly, I can't understand why we're in such a rush to dismantle these assets.
No one around here denies that the Air Force's new F-18 jet will outperform these Skyhawks. But that's at least 3 years away. In the meantime, men like Pete Clark say that we're dropping our guard. Australia is simply taking an unnecessary risk.
It's maintained 2500, clear for takeoff. Red leader 2500.
The Skyhawks are obviously fun to fly. Still, they are anything but a toy aeroplane. They're fast and lethal. And as the British found out in the Falklands War, when they're flown well, the Skyhawk is a very formidable machine.
What do you think this aircraft can do that RAAF aircraft can't do?
We're seeing here today a classic example. The Skyhawk right now, we have wingman configured out there as an aerial tanker. That capability, for example, could be used to help train our new F-18 aircraft and their crews that fly them, rather than relying on a very expensive 707 to fulfill exactly the same task.
Contact. Start Bill.
Husbands give everything that they have got, and they expect the government or whoever is in charge to be able to give back what they are giving, and that is not what they are doing at the moment.
When a girl marries a sailor, she gets the Navy as in-laws.
It's important for people to realise these wives are married to men whose first loyalty is to the Navy. As military men, their body is almost owned by the government. They are even required to have permission to have a vasectomy.
Being in the Navy is a way of life. They are sailors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's a way, it's not a job. They're not just losing their job, they're losing part of their life. It's the same as if you've lost someone very dear to you, that they've died. There are no words that can compensate for that.
Is the last of your options joining the Air Force? These are the armourers, the men who look after the bombs and the rockets and anything else that goes bang. Is there any feeling amongst you blokes that you've wasted your time?
Yeah, for sure. Very much so.
There are 147 men here, and now their branch in the Navy has been given the bullet. The armourers have been fired. Navy loyalists, like Chief Petty Officer Arthur Dare, are frankly confused.
Terribly confused. I didn't believe that what I had been told was correct. I thought there'd been a mistake made.
Now, you know, I can understand the people at Albatross being disturbed. A whole era of naval activity is disappearing.
The other word we get is loyalty. That loyalty is a two-way street. That I gave 15 years to the Navy, to the Fleet Air Arm. And now the Defence Department is saying to me, thanks very much, push off.
Well, we don't have any horse cavalry in the Army either.
Is it like that, the end of an era?
It's the end of an era. Loyalty to me is affected by gravity. It goes up, but it also goes down.
Did you think at all of resigning?
Oh, I think I did in the heat of the moment, but that would really be letting down my sailors and my officers. I mean, if I resigned, I might get some personal satisfaction, but my job now is to look after them.
Navy flyboys are a different breed, and they won't let you forget it.
Well, they joined the Navy. If they'd wanted to fly in the RAF, of course, they would have joined the RAF, but they joined the Navy.
Pete Clark, Dick Scott and their mates haven't had a carrier to land on for 18 months now, and they're not going to get one. But still, they go on practicing their dummy deck landings. Crash and dash, they call it. Touch and go. Commodore, are Navy flyers any better than Air Force flyers?
Oh, anyone can land on an airfield.
Is that right?
That's right. People, little old grandmothers do it every day.
Now, with that sense of rivalry, how can you turn around and ask your men to go and fly for the Air Force?
Because that may be the only option they've got.
Here at HMAS Albatross, they recently opened their own museum. And just in time, it seems, because if things go according to government plans, that's all the Navy aeroplanes are going to be, museum pieces, relics of the past. After 35 years, the Fleet Air Arm is being reduced to just a few helicopters here at Albatross. Now, as every Australian schoolchild knows from the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, dreadful things can happen to people who kill an albatross.
It's now time for all of us to re-examine, and personally I feel that there's probably not a lot left for me in the Navy.
It's a mystery to me. The game commences for the usual fee, plus expenses, confidential information. It's in a diary. This is my investigation. It's not a public inquiry.
Flight by flight, we're just enjoying it as much as we can, but one thing for sure, the realisation that it's coming to an end is certainly with us, and the time is getting mighty close.
It's not usual to see serving officers and men venting their feelings in public, as they did in this story. We want to stress that they spoke as private individuals expressing their own personal opinions, and that certainly shouldn't get them into any trouble, should it?
Debates about legalising prostitution usually boil down to this. Is it better to recognise a social evil in the hope of controlling it, or to close your eyes and let things pretty much fall as they will? Well, maybe we can learn something